Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is finally over, and what a ride it has been. It's been a while since I had a game that just consumed my life to the point where it became unhealthy. Me putting in over 200 hours into a game is extremely rare these days, especially in the matter of only like a month of the game's release, with life getting in the way as well as other games coming out, so I'll just beat it and move on. But there was just something about Xenoblade Chronicles 2 that had me hooked and constantly thinking about the game when I wasn't playing it. Even to this day, almost a year later, I still think about just how incredible the game was just randomly and how I enjoyed each and every moment of my time with the game. Not many games these days tend to leave a lasting impression on me like that, at least a good one anyways. Very few games manage to achieve this. But when they do, man, do they just stick with me and keep me coming back for more. And I'll be honest, I was kind of skeptical going into this game. Not because I thought the game was going to be bad, I didn't think there was any way Monolith Soft could surpass Xenoblade Chronicles 1. I mean, I think they kind of peaked right there, you know? Yeah, I was wrong, so... And I know that's an unpopular opinion, just let me have it, okay? Alright. Now, the game does have its annoyances and wasn't perfect by any means. I mean, not many games are. Well, except for that one. That's just the definition of perfection right there. And I think other Xenoblade games handled certain aspects better than this game, but there was just something about this game that I absolutely loved, that it managed to go down not only as my favorite game on the Switch, my favorite JRPG, but really just one of my favorite games of all time, period. Let's find out why.
An entire horizon of white, a sea of clouds, and at its heart, the world tree, piercing the heavens. This is the world we call home. All rest.
The story for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 I thought was really good. It still kind of sort of follows that whole thing of living on these giant creatures and other nations being at war with each other that Xenoblade Chronicles 1 also had, but just in a different sort of way with a completely different main goal for these characters. I liked how these characters basically lived in a world where they were on the verge of extinction due to all these titans slowly dying out and falling into the Cloud Sea. So to escape from war, extinction, poverty, and so on, reaching Elysium, which is basically heaven on earth for these guys, was #1 priority. But then you start to learn more about this place, how it could be a complete waste of time, how this so-called Elysium might not even exist because nobody's ever been there, it's just sort of like an urban legend, and the story just goes from there. The story also focuses a lot on the connections between masters and the blades. The masters being the drivers in control of these blades, and the blades being, well, the blades. The blades live by a life cycle where they're connected to the master, and if the master dies, the blade goes back to their core crystals until a new master activates them. And upon being released, they lose their memories of their past and the bonds that they had with their previous drivers. You really start to feel for these blades once you learn more about them and their fate, and you begin to understand why the main villains of the game hates the ideas of being a slave to these people, and after a few years of repeating the process, they have to suffer for what can be seen as the most ultimate levels of disrespect to them. So I was kind of not knowing who to root for in this situation. On one hand, yeah, you know, going around killing humanity isn't ever the way to go. Or is it? And on the other hand, I can understand where you're coming from, constantly losing your memories, forgetting who you are, having to live your life basically as a slave to your driver, and then going through a change that happens within them. It's kind of messed up, but that's what I really liked about this story. You're dealing with two completely different ideologies, but it never feels forced. The way that each party acts is a completely fair and natural way for these people to act, based on the past and current events, as well as what fate has in store for them. So I thought that was really cool. So what turned into a fairly simple plot from going from point A to point B just gets filled with so much going on. It's an incredible journey. And let me just say that when it comes to action scenes in video games, Monolith Soft, they're just one of the best. They are right up there with Devil May Cry and just everything Platinum Games does. The movements, the choreographies, the camera shots and angles, the speed, just everything about them. And they always have the perfect music for the scene to really send the shivers down your spine. It's seriously good. And speaking of the music, this soundtrack, it does something to me. And yes, this is a Blandrew video, so we need to talk about the soundtrack. We just got to. When Mitsuda said that the soundtrack to Xenoblade Chronicles 2 made him burst out into tears because of how good it was, I expected the soundtrack to be great. Now there's good soundtracks, and then there's great soundtracks. Songs that just really make the game that much better, that will last generations upon generations. Songs that really set the tone for each and every single moment of the game. Remember how you would be watching a cutscene in the original Xenoblade Chronicles, and then when you would hear the opening piano chord for engaging the enemy, you'd get goosebumps and think, uh-oh, it's about to go down, isn't it? Yeah, I think it's about to go down. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 does that and then some. You got choirs singing this angelic music throughout some of these environments, heavy metal for these epic encounters, oh god, and the night music, oh god. This isn't even talking about Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna, the Golden Country, which takes an approach that I've noticed a lot of Nintendo games doing in recent years. From Paper Mario Sticker Star, Mario Kart 8, Mario 3D World, the Switch presentation back in January of 2017, Wario Land Shake It, and so on, is that Torna, it's really jazzy. I mean, I really like jazz, so keep it up. Like, you'll just be walking throughout the environment and hearing the saxophonist in the background just really getting down on that saxophone. And again, I mean, I'm not complaining. I think it sounds great. Please, more jazz. I welcome it. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 music deserves to go down in the discussion for one of the greats, with Chrono Trigger, the Niers, the Personas, Donkey Kong, Kirby, Zelda, Sonic Adventure, and so on, because it is seriously just that good.
Listen, whatever. She'll be mine soon enough. Got a problem with that? Then come at me! And don't hold back!
What? Is this guy for real?
Now, I wouldn't say Xenoblade Chronicles 2 has my favorite cast of characters, because that game exists. But at the very least, I do enjoy this cast a lot, and out of the 3 Xenoblade games, Xenoblade 2's cast is easily my favorite of the bunch. I was interested and liked every single character in this game, the villains as well, and sure, the game does have its moments, but a few tropes here and there never really took anything away from the main game and me enjoying these cast of characters, because when it was time to dive into their stories and see them struggle with their problems throughout the story, the back and forth character interactions, and their goals throughout the gameplay, I was always interested to learn more about these characters. It's easy to point out these instances and say, ha, look, the game's weeby, there's modern day anime tropes in it. It's trash now, apparently. But ignoring something like Tora having dreams of becoming one of the best drivers to ever exist, but fate wouldn't allow him to activate a core crystal to be a driver because only certain people can, so when he tried, he almost killed himself in the process. So instead of just moping around feeling sorry for himself, he decides to take fate into his own hands and create what would be some of the most impressive blades in the game with artificial blades, so that he can continue on with his mission of being one of the greatest drivers, and you learn more about these characters as you go on. So to just focus on some lighthearted humor between the characters really is just taking away so much of what made these characters great and what they had to offer to Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And then when I jumped into the prequel with the Torna DLC and I was having all my questions answered left and right, I already liked Jin as a character in the base game, but it really made me like this character a lot more, and I felt for this character and got a better understanding of his motives for the main game. And this isn't even talking about characters like Laura or Adam, who just burst onto the scene becoming some of the most likable characters of the game just instantly. Now, story, world, and characters are all important in a video game, but if the gameplay just isn't there, then it can really bring the experience down and make playing the game feel like a chore. Monolith Soft absolutely knocked it out of the park when it pertained to gameplay for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. As somebody who grew up loving and adoring collectathons from the Nintendo 64, PlayStation, and GameCube, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 really caters to me with just how much there is to do and collect. For example, the core crystal mechanic. I know a lot of people have a problem with this game and how it handles getting new blades because it starts to feel like a gacha game you'd play on a cell phone, and I can definitely agree with that and understand where they're coming from. But finally getting rare blades after opening up multiple core crystals was always so satisfying to me.
Take this, and that, and another. Anyway, I'm Vale. Pleased to meet ya.
Each of these blades have these affinity charts that you can fill out, which requires you to do certain tasks like giving them their favorite food or pouch items, killing a certain monster multiple times, performing certain moves in combat, and so on. And because of this, if you're somebody like myself who enjoys fulfilling these kinds of quests and steadily ticking off accomplishments once you've completed them, you'll easily put in hundreds of hours just trying to fill out these charts to strengthen the trust between you and your blade to make them stronger. But it doesn't just end there. Monolith Soft could have easily just made the blades function as special weapons with their own unique moveset, but they decided to go the extra mile, and I'm so glad they did. To help make filling out the affinity charts more tolerable for those who may not care to do so, Monolith Soft incorporated side stories for the rare blades, so you get to help them achieve their life goals, overcome their fears, help them become more confident with themselves, train them to use their abilities better instead of constantly hurting their teammates, and so on. And just seeing the personalities of these blades and how they interact with your party was just so charming to me. It was a really cool implementation.
Awesome. What a lovely tune. You're talented too, Ursula.
Seems the people here appreciate it.
There aren't many RPGs out there where I legitimately have a blast grinding and leveling up. Usually the only types of games where I get that satisfaction is with monster collecting RPGs, where I get to fight, train them, level them up, and then after a while, they would evolve. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 feels very familiar to the combat of Xenoblade Chronicles and Xenoblade Chronicles X, while at the same time feeling very unique in its own right. You still have arts that can be activated once they fill up and deal more damage depending on where you hit the enemy, as well as chain attacks like the first game, but it has a much stronger emphasis on rhythmic timing as well as blade combos. And it's because of blade combos that I never really got tired of the combat system or dreaded getting into another battle, because picking the blades that work best for me and setting up combos based on the blades that I pick for myself and the team just never got old. Breaking an enemy, making it topple, launching it into the air, and then hitting it with a special attack, then slamming it back down into the ground was just so satisfying to me. Now, I know I'm probably gonna get a lot of people mad because for some reason, whenever I start talking about how much I like Xenoblade Chronicles 2, people always have a problem with that, you know? I don't get it. Or they'll come at me and start talking about how this game was trash and that the original game destroys it. I mean, I like both. Can't you just let me have my opinion? I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles 1, if you know this about me, Xenoblade Chronicles 1 was my favorite game of the entire last generation of consoles. There was just more in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 that was just for me, and as far as replay value goes, I think Xenoblade Chronicles 2 also has that beat. Anyways, I can't wait to see what Monolith Soft has up their sleeves for their next game. That medieval game looks pretty interesting, and if they're doing a remake of Xenoblade Chronicles 1, even though I don't think it really needs one, I mean, you know, just remaster it or just port it to the Switch, I'm there. They've pretty much solidified themselves as my favorite current RPG developers, and really just, you know, one of my favorite developers. They're one of those developers like when you're watching a trailer at some type of Nintendo conference and you just see the company logo pop up, that you immediately pause everything that you're doing and pay close attention because you're just about to be blown away by what they show. And out of their entire catalog, I really can't say that they've made a game that I dislike so far. I would have even liked to try that Disaster game that they made for the Wii, but what are you gonna do, you know? Anyways, that does it for this video. I appreciate it if you managed to listen to me ramble about this incredible game for this long. Let me know what you guys think about Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in the comment sections. I'd like to hear it. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. Take care. Have a good one.